everything we do, we're going to try to be environmentally responsible or socially responsible. And, we came up with, there's been all sorts of campaigns over the last 15 years, beyond the balance sheet thinking, really thinking about the triple bottom line, that people, planet, profits side. And it really just grew.
A quick interruption to remind you to like, subscribe, and rate this podcast so we can get your feedback and know how to make it better. Hey, it's Ari Santiago. Welcome to another exciting episode of the Made in America podcast. I'm here with Don Droppo, President and CEO of Curtis Packaging, in their 176th year right here in Connecticut. Don, thank you so much for coming on today.
Thanks for having me.
Well, listen, man, it's the Made in America podcast. So we start off with the same two questions.
Let's go.
What do you make? Why do you make it?
All right. We make packaging, luxury packaging. However, we call it folding cartons, but luxury packaging for various segments in cosmetic. The segments are cosmetic, health, beauty, fragrance, as well as liquor. You can see some of our stars right here. We work with Titleists in the golf industry, chocolates, and we manufacture it all in Sandy Hook.
That's really fantastic. And for those of you that are watching, that aren't watching on YouTube but are listening, Don was really gracious and brought over a ton of samples. But it's just, I think the boxes are empty though, right, Don? We don't.
They are unfortunately empty. We usually have a policy with our customers: no free packaging, no free either golf balls or spirits. So sometimes we barter, but for the most part, unfortunately, right now they're all empty.
Empty. Well, listen. So you guys make amazing packaging for some of the biggest and best, most luxurious brands in the world.
Thank you.
But why do you guys do it?
Why do we do it? Because we love what we do. We love supporting these iconic brands in the industries that they're in. We like to play in the top part of the pyramid. There's a part of the craftsmanship that we just absolutely love. We're not for the masses. We're definitely more of the higher end value add. And at the end of the day, when someone's opening up one of our boxes, it's going to bring a smile to their face. Again, it's spirits, cosmetics, chocolates, golf balls.
Sure. Yeah, so the golf balls, you smile when you open the box, and then the frustration happens when the ball doesn't go where you want it to go. Yeah, we've heard
that too. Sometimes people just rip the boxes open and throw them away, but
that's only when you've already started, right? Before you hit that first hole,
you're happy.
Life is a peach.
Right. When you have that dozen in your hands,
that 80. But then once you're at hole 7 and you realize you're aiming for 100, it's over. So listen, the company's 176 years old this year in 2021. Clearly, you haven't been around for 176 years. But I think, I'd love to get into the history.
Sure.
And so before we get into your specific of kind of how you got into the business, can you just talk a little to the audience about sort of the founding of Curtis and how long your family's been involved in all that?
No, it's a really a fascinating business. The Curtis Packaging was founded in 1845. And in 1845, the Curtis family manufactured buttons and combs out of horse hoofs, antlers, and horns. Literally buttons and combs. And people probably don't know that the Sandy Hook part of Newtown was a button and comb capital of the United States back then. Believe it or not. So for 5 generations, it was owned by the Curtis family from 1845 to 1980. But what happened was in the early 1900s, the husbandry, the slaughtering industry, the cattle industry went to the Midwest. And with it went the raw materials to make the buttons and combs. 3rd generation Curtis family member had to basically say, we either need to reinvent ourselves or we're out of business. So they tried to import, if you will, from Chicago, the raw materials that didn't work out so well. So what ultimately happened is, because of the products being very fragile, especially the combs, they were going horse and buggy to New York, to Boston, to Philadelphia, that Curtis Packaging was actually making some of it's called Curtis Packaging now, but it was Curtis and Sons back then. And they were making rigid boxes because they were very fragile. So
this was to transport
the buttons and combs, especially the combs that were fragile. So long story short, what ultimately happened was they said, look, we know packaging. We know how to make boxes. We're in a very industrialized area right outside of Waterbury. There's brass, there's ball bearings, there's ammunition, there's food. Tons of food, durable goods, nails. And we have some packaging that goes back to the early 1900s, which is fascinating. It's really, really fun to look at some of the packaging, to think some of them had 6 colors. and we had one color presses back then. So the same sheet would have to go through
through
the press
6 times?
6 times. Now we have, 11 color presses and 10 color presses. So it makes it a lot easier. But so then going on the history side, so then in 1980, this is where, the story sometimes takes a sad turn, and there was a 6th generation to take the family business over, Curtis family member, and the father and son had a big falling out. And ultimately, the father and son, they locked horns, the son left, and as the story goes, they never really spoke again. Incredibly sad. They've both since passed away at this point. But I said, old man Curtis, but he was ready to sell the business at this point. He was very frustrated. And so what he did was he did a management buyout. There was 5 principals, 20% equal ownership, head of marketing, head of finance, head of operations. So they pulled their money together and bought it from the Curtis family. They ran the business from 1980 to 1988. And then one of the 5 principals passed away. And after the principal passed away, they were settling a gentleman's estate. They brought in their trusted accounting firm that they hired since 1980 to basically say, here's what the company is worth. And my father happened to be the one who was doing the presentation with a couple of his associates. And he said to the 4 other principals, the gentleman said, well, here's what the business is worth. And basically, what would you like to do? And they kind of laughed. And one looks at my father and says, well, you should buy the company. We didn't realize it was worth this much. And there was a big laughter. And he's like, wait, what are you talking about? So my father, they had a big laugh. And again, my father was a partner at Pete Marwick. And he jumped back in the car after the presentation, drove an hour to Hartford, and could not stop thinking about owning his own business. And he always talked about it, owning a business since he was a kid, when he was, running a paper route on his bicycle. And he decided to call the gentleman who made that comment about you should buy it. And he called him up and said, my father's name is Don as well. I said, Don, I think that, you should buy it if you want. My dad's like, what? I don't know. I'm seriously interested. And the guy laughs and goes, well, Don, you can't negotiate the price. You already told us what it's worth. And my dad's like, oh. And he said, well, how about this? How about a 6-month exclusive? And let me see if I can get the financing together. So my father knew nothing about printing, packaging, manufacturing, but knew a couple of, real core principles. Clients, great customers that we've had for dozens of years. The employees, fantastic employees. The equipment at the time he thought was strong, but maybe it was older than he realized until he really got under the hood and owned the business. Mm-hmm. But that was in 1980 when he closed it. So in 1980, it was 1989. In 1989 when that happened. So in 1989, I was in high school. So I thought my father was crazy because I was used to him going into the, Hartford and the, white starch shirt and corner office to manufacturing. And the Curtis of 1989 looks nothing like the Curtis of today.
Well, you can't stop there. So that's a tremendous, what a great story. So your dad goes from accounting partner, right, to manufacturing proprietor,
business owner.
And by
no
the way,
idea.
To just add to the complexity,
right,
you guys are living in Avon,
correct,
and the business is in Sandy Hook. So, so to do some quick math, that's about 50 miles,
exactly.
And a bit of driving, back then. So what happened? It was a
gutsy move. I mean, he left his partnership. I think a lot of people were like, wow, it doesn't happen too often.
No.
But he decided he wanted to hang his own shingle and go for it and felt comfortable.
But not hang his own shingle in his own industry. That's the part.
Right.
Like, you've seen people break off from accounting firms, law firms, whatever, and start their own business or switch partnerships. But this isn't, you know what I mean? Wow.
It was nuts. It really was. And
that's awesome.
And he got in there and realized pretty quickly that the technology was older.
Okay.
There were really not a lot of computers at the time, older equipment. So there's going to have to reinvest back into it. I decided to work there through some summers in high school and college. And I did everything from unload the trucks, the 18-wheelers, to sweeping the floor, to customer service, account management side, as well as production. Really an interesting business to me. But even when I get into college, never once thought about going into the family business. It wasn't talked about that way. Some of my friends that are involved with family businesses, they turn 13 or 16 or 18, they get the keys to the kingdom. Here it is. Like, you are working in the family business. There was never that discussion because
I don't know if I'd call that the key to the kingdom.
Right.
It might be the handcuffs. It might be the handcuffs to the kingdom, but
that's true.
Yeah.
That's true. But again, in 1989, I was 15. And so I didn't really grow up with the business the way my kids are growing up with the business. They only know
the business
me
you grew up with was more the accounting business, honestly.
It was
seeing
100%.
him, like you said, the starch white shirts. My dad was a lawyer. I feel that.
Right. He was the bean counter.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, people coming over for meetings and all that stuff. Move papers, right? Briefcase and all
exactly.
that. And now all of a sudden he's still dealing with paper, I guess, but in a totally different way.
Totally different way.
So did you think it was cool? I mean, when you went out there and you saw the stuff, were you like, this is badass?
What I thought was badass about it was Titleist.
Yeah.
As a golfer and walking in there, and there at the time when he bought the business, I bet Titleist was 40-50% of the business in terms of sales. It was a large customer, long-standing customer. And it was always super high quality. And as a golfer, I just was enamored by the fact that we had Titleist because number one ball in golf and so prestigious. So that I thought was pretty, and frankly, just making something was interesting because accounting is, you don't see it. Accounting is numbers, and this is tangible. You can smell it. You can literally see going from a blank white piece of paper to coming out to this brilliant box that's hot stamped, embossed, and it was fun. So I was kind of attracted to that, but I also wanted to do my own thing too. And I think ultimately my father just wanted me to, again, go to college and experience life, and maybe he had this master plan all along. We'll see. I'll tease you with that.
By doing nothing, you had it all come back around. So, you graduate school in Avon.
Yep.
You go off to Burlington up in Vermont to UVM. My brother's a UVM alum.
Oh, nice.
And then what happens? What was the siren song of packaging?
It was really interesting. So. When I graduated UVM, I was marketing and finance major, double major. I wasn't sure exactly what I wanted to do. I had 3 job offers. One was advertising in New York. One was working for the Hartford Insurance Company. And then the other one was working for Merrill Lynch. I was all enamored with the idea of Merrill Lynch. And then ultimately I found out it was going to be more banging the phones. And I'm like, doesn't sound like a lot of fun banging the phones. And the other one was for gray advertising. It was like $19,000 a year in Manhattan. I'm like, I don't know how anyone's going to live off that. So
that's why there's like 12 people living in small apartments in Manhattan. But
exactly right. So I went with the one which sounded interesting, which happened to be insurance. And it's so cliche to be in Hartford, growing up in Connecticut. Sure. And then my first job is in the insurance industry. So I worked for the Hartford Insurance Company for about 3 years. And then I worked for General Reinsurance for about another 4 years. This was most of my time was in Boston. I was 1 year down in Atlanta. And then I was in Boston for the other years. And what my father didn't realize is that I was at a crossroads myself. I was newly married, and in order for me to keep progressing within General Reinsurance, you have to manage an office, but you don't get to manage Los Angeles or one of the big cities, Chicago. You'll go to a smaller city, which maybe I wouldn't be that excited about. And I remember my boss who laughed. It was almost like crying in your beer, but also laughing. He goes, my gosh, if I move to one more city, my wife's going to divorce me because every 3 years it was a promotion and it was a hop. You might go from Omaha to Cincinnati to St. Louis. And yeah, you might be making more money, but I didn't want to do that. I was just married, looking forward to starting a family. So I was trying to figure out, what do I want to do? Well, one fateful weekend, I still to this day don't know why my wife didn't join us on the ski trip. We have a condo in southern Vermont in Stratton. So we go skiing for the day, and we have après ski, and we have a couple of drinks, and then we go have a big steak dinner. And afterwards, we're having a cigar outside in the back deck. And we're just laughing and a great conversation. And all of a sudden, he puts his arm around me and goes, Don, what do you think about coming to work for me? I remember I took a big drag of my cigar and said, what do you want me to do? and that was in 2002, where we spoke for hours and hours about the business. And it was really an interesting conversation because, as he said, a few things really stuck out from that night. Is one, we're the best kept secret in New England, and we just need to get the word out. He goes, I'm slowing down. I'm tired. We need some young blood and fresh energy. He goes, I took the company from A to B. I think you can take it from B to C and beyond. And a couple of funny quotes came out of it. One was, I've had people that have wanted to buy Curtis for years and years and years. And as much as that would be great to have a bank account with lots of zeros in it, okay. But what am I going to do? Play more golf and drink more wine? He's like, I do enough of that as it is. And he goes, and frankly, the main reason why I don't want to sell is because we have been at the same 30 acres in Sandy Hook, Connecticut since 1845. And knowing that it's difficult to be a manufacturer in Connecticut for lots of different reasons, he knows that if he sold it to a larger strategic or a conglomerate, the first thing they would do would probably shut the Sandy Hook location down. Take the best equipment, take maybe some of the employees, and take the customer list for sure, and then move on. And he felt like he needed to be a steward of the business as well. And so that was, really stuck with me. And he really didn't think that he could get me out of Boston. Again, he didn't realize that I was having my own, conflict internally. And what do I want to do? Do I want to stay with this company, or do I want to try to find maybe a reinsurance or insurance company, which most of them happen to be based in Connecticut or New York, and the home office side, so I can be more permanent and raise a family? Because I wanted to coach and I wanted to be engaged with my children, as opposed to being, 3 years here and 2 years there and 5 years there.
And always on the road.
And always on the road. Yeah.
So, skiing, wine, and cigars. That combination probably leads to a lot of really good things. So there you go.
Right.
So what's the first gig? I mean,
so it was really interesting. And, to finish that weekend up, I come home. I have a bit of a hatchet in my head. I was like, that was a big night talking to my father. And we finished the bottle of Lagavulin single malt scotch, the two of us. And I get back to Boston. And I said to my wife, so what do you think about moving to Connecticut? And she looked at me and she goes, what the hell happened in Vermont? So I kind of reviewed it with her, and we were talking about it, and we said, all right, let's do it. So I ultimately started a couple months later as a vice president of sales and marketing. And as he always said, especially during that really fun, entertaining evening, because I could never build a great sales force, because we had great people, really good equipment, because he'd been burned by headhunters in different situations. I need you to build this A1 sales force, because we are an amazing company and we need to really just get the word out there. Mm-hmm. And it was funny. So day one, I look at the website, no joke. And it was early websites anyway, but this looked like it was done by a 6-year-old, because it was Curtis, like C. Courteous, you, and it just like C-U-R-T-I. Oh yeah. It made me laugh. And I said, okay, so first thing is, let's get our website in order. And then we never did a trade show once, and we never really got the word out. And then it was how we went about hiring and really top grading our sales force, which was, kind of crazy, but it was fun. It was really fun.
And it worked.
Yeah, and 5 years after that, we doubled the sales of the company. So there's a lot
That's
going on.
not a bad place to be. But if I'm doing my math right, 2002-ish plus 5 years is 2007. A little bit of a speed bump, I imagine. So talk about that a little bit. you've got two guys. It's just so fascinating, because you've got this family business. So you got the family dynamic.
Right.
You got your father, who clearly has a tremendous accounning background. Right. So I would imagine knows how to manage the numbers, knows his way around a P&L and a balance sheet. I think pretty handily. Yep. And then, you've got the insurance, reinsurance background, certainly, sales and marketing, and gregarious, great personality, which helps in sales and marketing. Sure. And you guys run into this speed bump in this manufacturing business. Talk us through kind of how that played.
It was crazy, because we really had this great 5-year run. It was awesome. A part of it was from the environmental side, and we became the first printing and packaging company in North America to run our entire operation on 100% renewable energy. We were carbon neutral. We really cared about all the 101 aspects of the environmental, being responsible. Way back when, if it was motion detectors, really simple. But we were on this trajectory, and the economy was going well, golf was going well. And it was nice really watching the sales of Titleists increasing, yet the percentage of our business was decreasing because we're just thriving in the cosmetics side, which today is about 65-70% of our business. When I got to Curtis, I would say it was probably 10% of our business. And then 2008 and 2009 happened. And boy, did it happen quick. I tell you, I remember being in my father's office, and where we're used to having, let's say, sales and shipments of $3 million a month, all of a sudden is going down to $2 million a month, or 2.2, or change. And we needed to make some adjustments quickly. And it was tough because we really, with the senior management team, we had to get everyone together, and we had to take cost out. You do get into that. Well, we brought more people on, and we needed to just get lean and quick because we were not in control. And that's what even, you can touch on COVID, I'm sure we will later, but when you feel like you're not in control of your own business, it's really tough. Mm-hmm. So you have to make some really tough decisions. It was fast. And that was what I would say our friendly bankers were very happy about, because we still, managed to eke out almost a break-even year. And we had to make
a 30% almost reduction in sales?
Yep.
Wow.
I mean, we had to move quick.
Yeah,
we had to move real quick. And you're right. And that was one of the things that came out of it. And it's, the cliche, it's lonely at the top. I mean, we're making some really tough decisions. And especially a business like ours, where it is still a family business. And one of the jokes that I always say to a new hire is, watch what you say about another employee, because it may be that person's cousin. It could be their husband. It could, there's still a lot of tie-ins from family.
Well, listen, a long time business in small town is probably, that makes
small town.
Sense.
It was tough, but we got through it. And you do come out.
So what I was going to ask you, what lessons did you learn from that crisis? That you think helped you in this most recent challenge?
Absolutely. I think the first one was just really needing to act quick. As much as it's a hard decision to do, and you're dealing with people and people's lives, but sometimes you do have to furlough. You don't have an option. We have to report to our banks, and we have to. There's certain covenants, certain things that we need to adhere to. Yeah. So that was one. The other one, which again is amazing, it really came down to innovation, because the innovation, how we got out of it. I remember saying very clearly, because once we got our feet under us again, I said, this is when we're going to double down on our marketing. This is when we're going to double down our innovation. And it was all under the kind of a green lens. So a product that maybe was not recyclable, we came out with innovations to make it recyclable. An example is Kurt Chrome. So Kurt Chrome is a product where you put down a very heavy metallic silver ink, and then you can print transparent colors on top of that to have a nice metallic look. Well, you can also print on metallized polyester boards, where it's a film laminate that goes on top of the paper board itself. That is not recyclable because there's a film there. Mm-hmm. The ink is recyclable. So coming out with innovations when some were really just trying to survive. Mm-hmm. So that was great.
Taking the downtime, if I could just restate that to make sure I'm getting the point.
Yeah.
And make the point is, when the times were tough, we got to make the cuts. We got to act quick, do that stuff.
That's right.
But it's also not time to sit back on our laurels and see what's going to happen. We got to get back on the balls of our feet. Okay, we made the cuts. Now, how can we innovate and invest? And the analogy I've been trying to talk to people is about, it's like coil up that spring.
Yeah.
And what you're waiting for is the opportunity to spring back. And if you wait until it's time to spring back to start coiling, someone else is taking market share instead of you.
That's right. And what really happened was we doubled down big time on our environmental programs. That was really, really fun.
Yeah, let's just pull. I mean, I got so many questions here. We could do this for hours, but maybe it'll be episode 2. Talk about that. I mean, I know that the green packaging, you're clearly passionate about it. In our brief kind of prep conversation, we talked about it's on your website. You guys are very proud of the fact that the first carbon neutral packaging company in the country or the world or whatever. Carbon neutral. I mean, that's fucking impressive.
Yeah, thank you.
And I'm just curious, what is it? I don't know. Talk us through that thought process.
The journey.
How was it a competitive advantage?
Yeah.
How do you think about it from a business perspective?
Sure. It was, I'll go back to a funny story with my father. I think you'll certainly appreciate this.
Yeah.
So
I wish we had some Lagavulin.
I know, right? So it was really funny what happened. I got to the business and I was just asking different questions about recycling. And I don't know, it's not like I didn't study environmental studies. I did go to UVM and maybe some of that green side, just rubbed off on me. But ultimately, I wanted to know what we were doing with all of our waste. And I wanted to know, these are, again, I am fresh eyes looking at a business. And sometimes you do have the blinders on as a business owner or an employee of 20 years. Our average tenure at Curtis is still almost 20 years, which is amazing. So here we are, and I'm learning as much as I can. I'm reading a lot, and there's kind of this whole green wave coming through. There is, kind of the inconvenient truth, and polar caps are melting, and there's a lot of things going on. And at the same time, I also read in one of the trade magazines the inception of a group called the Sustainable Packaging Coalition. Oh, wow, sustainable packaging. This is like right up our alley. And I found out that it was meant more for the companies. Some of the founding fathers were Starbucks, Estee Lauder, Nike, big brands. I called them up and said, I want to be a member. And they were blown away. And ultimately, we were the first privately held company and supplier to join this group. So now here's little Curtis Packaging with a seat at the table with all these, Fortune 100, Fortune 500 brands. But I remember going into my father's office. This is true. I mean, as my father always says, most of his stories are true. But this is a true story where I go in and I could see that I was on the phone. He was building a house and he was kind of upset and just frustrated with the builder. It was costing twice as much time. The usual. That's right. The usual we've just hang-ups that people have. And my father and I are very close, but he had a pair of reading glasses on. He looks over his reading glasses and because I'm waiting patiently in his office and he goes, "What?" And I laugh and I said, "So how's your day going?" And he said, "Well, what do you want to talk about?" I said, "Well, what do you think if we run Curtis Packaging on 100% renewable energy?" And he looked at me and goes, "How much is that going to fucking cost?" And I laughed, knowing my father. I had all my paperwork. I went and I sat down because at the time we didn't have any on-site generation. This was going to be 100% through renewable energy credits. And I was interested in doing that and saying, no one is ever going to make fun of you as an organization if you're environmentally responsible or socially responsible. And I used to have, Ben and Jerry, they would come literally to UVM and present to the business school. And this is again, before Unilever, before that, when they're a privately held company. Yep. But I've always admired a lot of these organizations that are able to weave that into their company DNA. And from that moment on, I looked at Curtis as two of my favorite brands, a fusion of Aston Martin and Patagonia. I said, that's what I want people to think of Curtis Packaging. Super high end, not unattainable. I mean, maybe Aston's a little bit up there, but
not quite a Ferrari, but
right. Yeah. But at Patagonia, and that everything we do, we're going to try to be environmentally responsible or socially responsible. And we came up with, there's been all sorts of campaigns over the last 15 years, beyond the balance sheet thinking, really thinking about the triple bottom line, that people plan at profits side. And it really just grew. And it was so much fun to go through that and be the leader because we had competitors that would say, "Don, knock it off. You're driving us crazy." Now we have to buy renewable energy credits because what we did is we went to our customers with renewable energy. So now 100% renewable energy and carbon neutral. And we said, "Oh, by the way, customer, you can put these really awesome green messaging on your packaging. Won't cost you anything. But if you want to say carton is made with renewable energy in a carbon neutral facility, you can do that." So all of a sudden you're locking someone in because once you have a message like that, you do not want to take it off. Right? Yeah. So that was great. And then one of the last pieces I'll say, which really was awesome as an organization is, and this is just a lesson for anyone, is about partnering up with your local universities. So we're very fortunate that if you go out of Curtis Packaging, take a right, go down Route 34 for a half an hour, you run right into Yale University. And we have partnered up with Yale University for over 10 years. And we've partnered up with their School of Management, but primarily their School of Environmental Studies. And that has been awesome because we've done these clinics, which they call them, where we will give them a topic and say, we would like someone to research B corporations and how can Curtis be a B corporation and help us with the assessment. We want to do a life cycle analysis, LCA, on these 2 different types of inks or 2 different types of coatings. And these students are bright. They're fantastic. They come to us with this wonderful report. We've implemented so many things. And one of the things that I'll give one group credit for is how we look at waste within our organization. And how we look at waste now. It used to be waste, right? It was just, this is scrap and waste. Now we call them PPAs, post-production assets. And that has been it's just a way you think about it. And at first, there was some pushback because maybe you used to throw away something right next to you. And now you have to maybe walk, 100 yards to do it. But just having the mind shift on how you're looking at being environmentally responsible, just internally is awesome. I still get people that send me articles. Hey, did you see that? Did you see this? And it's something we're really proud of. And then you see the products on the store shelves and you're even more proud.
Yeah, no doubt about it. So just really quickly, you touched on something that I don't know if anyone knows what it is. So I just want to circle back to that real quick. You said a B corporation, certified B corporation. Just really quickly, can you just tell the audience about what the sort of the B corporation movement is and what it means to be certified?
Yeah, a B corporation movement is, some will call it, it's also known as a kind of a benefit corporation. Mm-hmm. But ultimately, I see it as the gold standard for an organization because it really touches on that people, planet, profits. You have to do an assessment, which is really, really thorough. Yeah. And I am talking, they get way under the hood of the car and everything. And you are going to answer many, many, many questions to do with employee engagement. What do you do for the community? Benefit, all of it. It's an amazing.
It's assessment on what you referenced before that the people, planet, profit.
Yeah.
It's a triple bottom line there's a website. It's like certifiedb.org or something, I think, right?
Yeah, there's B Labs.
Yeah.
And anyone can do a free assessment just to see where you stack up. I know plenty of people, like we're B Corp compliant. We never got the certification. We're thinking about it. It was a big investment, bigger investment than I realized. But it was nice that we passed first shot and just did it. But it's really a 360 on an organization that really it makes you think. Mm-hmm. It makes you think. And then when you get the score back and you see some deficient areas, like, wow, maybe we do need to do something more about our employee engagement. Or maybe we do need to do a day off, and I'm making it up, but clean up the river. And who knows what the project is. But it's fascinating. And I would encourage anyone, even if you're never going to go down that path, do the assessment, just see where you stack up.
Dude, I love it. And so when you think about the business benefit, right? So the profit part of the P.
Yes, I think which is equally important because without that, you're not going to have the other two.
That's right. So when you think about how these initiatives, whether it's B Corp or it's also, the green initiatives, how do you think about how that impacts the bottom line, right? Because a lot of people are going to see that there are some cost adds
without a
to
doubt.
make it happen. Some that are more hard and obvious, which could be the renewable energy costs or whatever, or different types of packaging or updating your processes, different equipment that all costs money. And then there's the soft cost, which is when you want to give people time off or you want to do more engagement. Someone has to run that and do that. So help educate me and people listening on how you think about that in the context of making profit.
Yeah, and it's funny. So you think about a small business-ish of our size of 140 employees, around again 35 million, and dealing with a father at who makes the comment of how much is this going to cost.
Right.
Again, you can look at things: is it an expense or is it an investment?
That's right.
And I took it under the investment side, saying, look.
So where's the R, right? You got the I, but where's the R for the I? So what is the return? How do you think about that?
Right. So the return for us was in new business sales. We did a lot of research. And again, we're not all things to all people. What we do, we're very good at. So we looked at what brands are high-end luxury that are environmentally responsible. I mean, a few stick out for me right away. Origins, the brand Origins, part of Estee Lauder, Aveda, part of Estee Lauder, and then a whole host of other especially some of the brands in cosmetics, it goes hand in hand because so many brands in cosmetics, if you're making skincare, it's a natural, certified, organic, and we just kind of caught that wave at the right time. And we were loud about it. We went out and we were very proud of this is what we can do. And you can put this green messaging on it. And I remember one time they did like a kind of a 5 or 8 year postmortem. I went to my father's office and said, by the way, without the environmental initiatives, we wouldn't have these, $9 million worth of customers and sales, kind of a laugh, but it's absolutely a fact. So we were really looking at it from that standpoint. And I will also say this from a hiring standpoint, especially kind of next generation. So I'm 46 years old and I used to think I was the youngest one in the company. And now, not anymore. So when you have people coming out of college, 21, 22, or someone who maybe they're on their second job or third job, maybe they're 30, they're looking for organizations that just care about other things than making money. And that from attracting talent, we have had people specifically say, I love what you stand for. I love what you're doing. Some people say sustainable packaging is an oxymoron, right? Packaging, sustainable. But the reality is you still need to have some sort of packaging. Yeah, there's products that you could probably take out of a box. But oftentimes you need the durability, you need to be able to transport, you need to snag it. And you do want to have a nice billboard and market and branding. And that is important.
100%. Listen, I'm going to throw one other third thing, which you didn't mention, but I think is when you go through these concepts, when you look at the B Corp certification, when you go through the mental exercise of how to do this, I think it creates operational excellence.
It does.
And that operational excellence pays its own dividends. And much like how I was saying before that there's soft costs and hard costs,
right?
There's also hard benefits, and you ticked off $9 million of them. That's a pretty good hard benefit. But there's a lot of soft benefits too, which probably means that you're not only doing that $9 million of business, but the other 25 million a little bit better and a little bit more efficiently because you've had to generate that level of excellence and that level of attention to get it done. And that's, I think, the other huge benefit that people
and I will say, Ari, what was funny is I will not mention the client's name. However, I remember speaking to them. It was in the spirits, let's just say in the spirits side of it. And when you're talking to a $1 billion brand about environmentally responsible packaging, and this is in 2007, they're probably not that concerned. I gave this whole presentation and they looked at me like I had two heads. Like, who really cares about this stuff, Don? And I laughed, and I remember that I got a call about 3 or 4 years later and said, Don, we have some of our board and some of our shareholders are asking questions about sustainable packaging. I know you came in like 4 years ago. Could you come back in and re-educate and go through what you said? And then sure enough, we were putting some green messaging on liquor packaging. Who knew? But what happened again was we were ahead of the curve in a lot of that. And you look at spirits. And water is a real big one. Now, we're blessed to be where we live, and water isn't an issue. There's a lot of places where water is an issue. So water and spirits and beer and drinks and everything else was pretty fascinating. So a lot of companies have in their goals is really looking at water usage and making sure that they're properly just not using too much. Or really trying to limit the
resource.
So anyway.
Let's switch gears just a little bit. Diversification, something that you talked about. You said when you started, or I think it was when you started, that one of your customers, great customer, but was like 60% of the business. And any of those of us that have been in business for a while know that can be a challenge. And going through COVID, a lot of people are thinking about diversification, right? A lot of manufacturing.
Correct.
Here it was aerospace related. That's been a challenge. Automotive has some ups and downs.
That's right.
But people struggle. And so I wonder if you could sort of talk about when you did it, how did you think about it when you assess what does it mean to us? How do we want to diversify?
Right.
And then how did you execute to get it? Because it seems like now we're past that problem.
Yeah. No, you're right. And when Titleist was such a big part of our business and our sales, what I didn't even realize, the one question I didn't ask in Vermont that one fateful night, is we didn't even have a contract with Titleist. It was a handshake. It was literally a handshake agreement. And that was one of the first things I'm like, whoa, okay. So we need to at least look towards some sort of a contract in the future with them. And we were way too heavy with one client because as we watched our business evolve over the years before even my father, is we were really heavy in toys. And so if you think toys and Hasbro and Coleco and all these others, that stuff went ultimately in Mexico over to Asia. So we lost big segments and big chunks of business. So in terms of the diversification side, it was clear to me you have to do the market research. What is in that top part of the pyramid? What sectors do we want to go after that we know we already have the talent? Titleist, what people don't realize is, in the cosmetics they do now, but these print and they hot stamp and they emboss, they have multiple coatings and they have windows and they have every single thing that we do to Titleist is also done on Chanel. Mm-hmm. Nothing's missing. And in fact, oftentimes Titleist has more value adds than a lot of cosmetics might. So cosmetics was just and cosmetics is a big general term. Again, there's health, beauty, fragrance, there's the skincare. And then we looked at, well, what else out there? Well, liquor, spirits, huge, right? Just absolutely huge. And chocolates, and knowing that the way our business is set up, we are not going to be making cereal boxes. We're not making granola bar boxes. We're not going to be able to make Budweiser 24, wraps or whatever, right. The cases where those are big multi-billion-dollar companies that own forests and paper mills. So we have to understand our niche. So it was understanding what can we do that really don't even have to retool our business much at all. And who is going to care potentially about or environmental, because this is again, a big benefit of working with Curtis. So that's when you went to the natural chocolates and who are the natural skincare brands, and sometimes the spirits, came up, and Titleist just by nature loves everything that we're doing because it helps their organization, indirectly.
Yeah, golf's an outside sport, and listen, I hope people kind of walked away with the idea of thinking about what area of the market do we serve?
Absolutely.
Who else is in that same tier of the market, maybe adjacent, that uses all of our same skills and expertise?
That's it.
Same tooling, same understanding, and that appreciates the value proposition.
And you have to be strategic, because I will say this, one of the things in the very beginning, how we got into cosmetics, again, like I said, we were probably 5% cosmetics when I got to the business, is we needed to grow the sales force. Mm-hmm. And it's really, really, really hard to get into a new industry totally blind. Mm-hmm. So I went to different cosmetic trade organizations. One's called CIBS, stands for Cosmetic Industry Buyers and Suppliers. I went there the first year when I was at Curtis. I became a member. I got to know people, cocktail parties, dinners, and I found out who my competitors are. And I found out, man, if I could have anyone in this room work for me, who would it be? And there was a gentleman, Mike Simcoe. He's still my VP of sales. He was working for a competitor at the time. I remember going into my father's office way back when and thinking, we got to make this guy an offer. He is awesome. He's relationships, personality. He's driven. He lives in Connecticut. I think he's a home run. But here's the deal: is we're going to really have to up our game, because it was the old, you get what you pay for.
Yeah, always.
And whatever your opening offer was for most salespeople, double it, or maybe even triple it. And long story short, Mike propelled us big time into cosmetics, and it worked. It was a recipe that worked, and we did that with other people in other segments.
Dude,
and you got to always find the top.
I hope are listening to this, because a lot of Connecticut manufacturers grew, especially the ones that have been around for a while, grew in this word of mouthy,
right.
With whether these guys are just down the street, everyone knows us type of a deal. And there's so many, best kept secrets.
Exactly.
And listen, I fell victim of the same thing. Maybe it's in the water here, where, we were proud of that.
Yeah. Right. True.
But that's, if we want to make an impact,
right,
we got to be out there. We got to be telling the story. Who is Curtis Packaging? What's our value proposition? Talking to people, getting out there. You guys obviously.
And it's so hard to get, to penetrate new industries, new sectors.
Yep.
The running joke I always say is, everyone that's listening or watching to this podcast, if you tried to call, I don't want you to do this, but if you tried to call Chanel and say, I'd like to do your packaging, I mean, come on.
Right.
You're not getting a phone call back. I don't care what you're doing.
Right.
So you really have to network into these different sectors. And you're absolutely right. I have a few different friends that are involved with machine shops now, and they can be heavily involved with aerospace and other sectors that are struggling.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to be able to, what else is out there and turn in a dime. And the last thing I'll say, which goes back to 2008 and 2009, a big learning that we had was we did lots and lots of gift sets for holidays. So spirits and cosmetic gift sets are big. Mm-hmm. You go into a Macy's, you go into a Bloomingdale's, and you see that there's a bottle of perfume and the skincare and these kits. Or you go into a liquor store, there's a bottle of Grey Goose, has 2 martini glasses in it.
Dude,
Here it is.
Listen, we just had our Secret Santa Hanukkah Harry
You got
thing.
it.
How many bottles of booze went around that? Yeah,
exactly. So we were making a lot of these gift sets. But what happened in 2008 and 2009 is that a lot of the gift set business in the cosmetics went away. This promotional business went away. So the big takeaway for us as an organization was we need more line work. We need more day-to-day line work items. Because it was about 20+% of our business just all but went away in that time frame. So we need core business and focus on that. And yeah, it's nice to have that off to the side, but it's like not relying on your bonus check as part of your salary, right? That's a bonus. So
Correct.
if I get
don't try and make dessert the main course.
Exactly right. So anyway.
No, that's great. Yeah. Actually, side question that just occurred to me is the move away from, and I think this is a fact, but I don't know it for sure, that there's a pretty big move away from brick and mortar retail to online. Have you heard about that?
Oh, yeah. I've heard about that. I see the cardboard boxes in my garage.
Right. So, I mean, that's the big joke, right?
Right.
I mean, I thought I was being cute when I said that they built that Middletown distribution facility so that Amazon could be closer to our house.
That's right.
But everyone apparently makes that same joke. So, so I guess the question I have on that is, does that help you guys? Do you see that packaging being helpful?
It's really funny because we've had a lot of different meetings about this. Is it a huge threat? Is everything just going to all of a sudden show up in a brown box with no outer packaging around it? And the reality is, I mean, how many videos are there right now on YouTube of unboxing? People that
kids are relentless.
My kids will watch these videos of someone, if it's a Louis Vuitton, opening it up, getting a purse, whatever it is.
My kids are on Jurassic Park dinosaur toys, but I'm with you.
Yeah, but you know what I'm saying. I have a couple teenagers.
Yeah, I got you. Yeah.
But again, now with videos like that, the packaging has become almost more important because they're not going to the store.
Totally.
You just don't want, okay, maybe you use XYZ skincare. You might use it if it came in a plain bottle, but no, you still want it to be in this nice glass jar with the silver top. And again, a fancy box that we do.
You want to get that bottle, good about it. You spend bottle of Cristal, you want it.
Exactly. You spend $50 on something, $100 on something. So the packaging side has almost become more important because when you would normally go through a brick and mortar store and ooh and ah over all of it. But now you have a really captive audience when you buy a product and they get to see the craftsmanship in it. So it's funny. It's actually went the other way.
From the box. Yeah, listen, the other thing too, which I'll just throw out there and move on to something else is this new thing that apparently, this is what I see all the kids are into now that I've got a 6-year-old and a 4-year-old. A lot of the toys they buy now are like surprise toys. Yeah. So you get like these Hatchimals or this other stuff where you don't even know what you're getting. You're buying the box. Right. And then thinking about what's inside is what's going to come next. And like the surprise is part of it. So that packaging is huge part of it. And there's all those, the Birchbox and these companies where they do throw a surprise in there. It's the cosmetic of the month or you don't know what you're getting. So let's switch gears a little bit to the recruiting and retention, because you talked about that a little bit. And I think it's an important item. So you got a lot of longevity, at Curtis. 140 people is a sizable business. Everyone respects that. Talk to me a little bit about how you're thinking about recruiting, right? Sandy Hook, beautiful town, not exactly a bustling metropolis, but tons of labor opportunities. So just talk a little bit about how you think about recruiting, how you guys think about retention, and what you're doing to look at the turnover of, the silver tsunami, right? The craftsmen that have been with you 20, 30, 40 years. And yeah, I've never heard it called the silver tsunami, but you're right. I mean, that's exactly what it is. We've watched a lot of the baby boomers starting to retire, and they have started to retire. And you're absolutely right.
we get phone calls all the time from different states. Move the business to South Carolina, Kentucky. Hey, Don, it's Bud from Arkansas. And, we laugh about it. But the reality is we are manufacturing in Fairfield County, Connecticut. I mean, it's kind of crazy when you think about it just from a very black and white standpoint. So we do have an issue with, attracting, because you might have someone coming from, say, North Carolina, and they all of a sudden come to Newtown, Connecticut. And they're like, I'd like to live in the town. I don't want to have much of a commute. I want to live in the town where Curtis is. And then they see the average, medium cost for a house. I don't even know what it is, $550,000. Like, whoa, okay. And then, you have to, continue to branch out. So we've done a few different things, some outreach programs to different schools to try to get some younger talent in. And part of it is the educating of the parents, because we do not live in the grandfather's environment of manufacturing where it's dirty and you lose a finger. And no, it's not like that at all. It's so automated. The equipment we have is state of the art. Our last printing press was $6 million. And, these things are incredible.
Which, by the way, I think for those of you who are watching it, we have a maybe to scale, but certainly not life-size replica of the press that Don was just talking about, which was custom built for them, and it's the only one of its kind.
So if you have $6 million, you don't know what to do with it, you can buy a nice Koenig & Bauer press.
Yep, and then the building to put it in.
Yeah, because it's 100 feet long.
Right, so
it's 100 feet long. But going back to the retention side, which is really important to us as well when looking at growth. Again, I'm 46. My head of manufacturing, Carrie Brown, is 50, and we have a very young. That's a very, very young team for having your kind of 1 and 2 running the organization, and he is just as passionate about Curtis, and he is fantastic. So what happened was about 4 or 5 years ago, we were just kicking different ideas around about our company and how to, again, saving money. And every now and again, maybe you don't have a good month or a good quarter. And if we're going to take some cost out, or what are some ideas? So our senior management team, we meet once every week, Thursday mornings primarily. And we came up with this idea of working a 4-day work week. Now, in 2008 and 2009, we were running 24/5. We were running 24 hours a day, 5 days a week. One of the casualties, if you will, of that, the financial crisis, was we shut down our third shift. It was a skeleton third shift anyway, so it wasn't 100% like the first, and second was maybe 90%, but it was about 50% of the equipment was being run. So we eliminated that, and we always had 2 shifts. So then for many, many years, we had 2 shifts, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week.
So 16 by 5.
Yep. And then we said, well, why not do 2 10s 4 days a week? And what would that do? Because we have big pieces of equipment. There's always the warm-up time, the cool-down time, the setup, even the conversations, and there's, continuity of running jobs. You'd rather just run 10 hours right into another 10 hours. And this is something, what do you think everyone would go for? So instead of coming in at 8, you're coming in at 6 a.m. So when we announced this, I mean, the first 2 weeks, people's eyes were, bleeding, and they're not used to being up at 6 o'clock in the morning or 5 o'clock in the morning or earlier. And ultimately, it was one of the greatest things we've ever done for a few reasons. One is there's no better non-financial perk I can give someone than time. Oh. I'm giving you a 3-day weekend if you're in manufacturing. Now, you have to, again, there's always a fine balance. Anyone that owns a manufacturing company knows that there is a fine balance, because there's usually 2 sides of the wall. There's your administrative side, and there's actually the craftsmen that are making the products. And you do everything in your power to make it fair and equitable. So, as you can imagine, people, well, wow, I would like to get Fridays off too.
Yeah.
Or every other Friday. So we have done some things internally. So for different positions, if someone comes in an hour early, for 2 straight weeks, then you get every other Friday off. And we do have this, what we have is just an incredible balance now, because people need to have a life too. And then if we were on overtime in manufacturing, which oftentimes, knock on wood, that we're busy, like right now we're very busy. We are working Fridays. So even if an individual is working another 5 to 10 hours on a Friday, they still have their Friday night, Saturday day, Saturday night, Sunday day, and they have a full weekend, traditional full weekend. Now they're
Which is
getting,
just awesome because I think,
it's
to
awesome.
the point you just touched on there is that, it's, you like being busy, everyone likes being busy, but you run busy too long and then people are getting
you
a
burn them
day
out.
weekend.
Oh.
And you're also getting a lot more family pushback stress, right? Because
Big
all the family
time.
stuff's happening on the weekend. You can't go to the kids' game.
That's
you
it.
can't, in COVID where you can't go anywhere, you really need the help.
And Ari, and we have really fantastic employees. And you're right. And it's not like you ask every single Friday, but but if we ask oftentimes, to your point, they'll say, yes, we do it. We understand. We need to get this launch out. We need to do this. We need to do that. And the other piece, which ties beautifully into the retention and attraction of new employees. Again, I'm in Connecticut. It's not a thriving metropolis. I'm not saying, hey, we're a suburb of Boston or Manhattan. We were hiring someone to run our print shop manager. And he has said more than once, one of the biggest attractions to Curtis was a 4-day work week.
Mm-hmm.
Who doesn't love that?
Oh.
Fantastic. And in fact, we may have we're busy and we're not there yet, but if we continue to stay busy and between innovation and new customers and the growth of our own business, we're going to look at something where we're going to do like 3 12-hour days. And the reason why we're looking at that is I think I might have a huge uprising if I say we're going back to a 24/5. For 5 or 6 years, if you're used to having a 3-day weekend, you can't really take that away. No. So we would have a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, like a weekend crew. So we're not there yet. We're still kicking around the idea. Who knows? There's still a lot out there. But you can also have some individuals say, I'm going to bust my ass for 3 days. And you're probably going to get paid 40 hours anyway for that 36, just by nature of it. And then I have 4 days off. I can go golfing. I can go fishing. I can go boating. I can do nothing. I just have more me time or family time.
Dude,
so we do look at that balance all the time. And especially, again, being in Connecticut. So what kind of hooks? So again, 4-day work week and the environmental side being a socially responsible business. We're trying to really tick a lot of boxes to attract talent. We really try.
Yeah, you're doing a tremendous.
Thanks. We try hard.
You're doing a real heck of a job. So we're kind of running out of time. We are going to have to do a second show because I got a million more questions. But I want to talk a little bit about the technology investment.
Yeah.
Talk about how you guys think about it. It's such a critical component in every business, especially in manufacturing, because you've got so many competing demands and the equipment's so expensive, which you alluded to.
Right.
And there's always the chicken and egg, right? It's we need the equipment to be able to do the work.
Correct.
But if I don't have the work, and so just talk through your thinking of how you think about investment decisions in the business and where technology fits in there.
It's always a challenge because the equipment is expensive, and you're right. It's the chicken or the egg. And I remember having conversations a few years ago before we bought this new press, which again is $6 million. And to having the conversation with my former CFO, he's since retired, saying, Don, are we going to be able to afford that? Like this is the real deal. So Kerry Brown, who's our vice president of operations, to his credit, he did a lot of research. He went to all the printing press manufacturers and pretty much presented to myself and to Bob, who was our CFO. And I think Bob's jaw hit the ground when he saw top speed of this machine is 15,000, top speed of other machine, 10,000. Or make ready times instead of 45 minutes per color in a setup is now only going to be 15 minutes. And these kind of statistics back and forth. And then ultimately it's dollars and cents. So it's okay, maybe we're going to have people retiring. Are we going to be downsizing at all? How do we afford this technology? But I'm telling you right now, being in Connecticut, you need to have that technology. It's expensive, and employees, it's very different what I have to pay someone if I was in Kentucky or down south, or maybe I'm going to pay someone in Newtown, Connecticut. So we really have to be smart. We don't buy lots of pieces of equipment. We buy very strategic pieces of equipment. So this one new press here took out 2 printing presses. We just bought a die cutter that was installed right in the middle of the pandemic, right smack in July. It's called a BOPS die cutter. Again, you're looking at 1.8 million for top speeds, changeover times so fast. And now we have some of the latest and greatest equipment, but we just have to be so incredibly strategic. And we look at our top 3 or 4 customers. Okay, how can we impact them? Titleist still being a large percentage, our largest customer. How is this technology going to affect when you run over 100 million boxes a year for Titleist? 100 million boxes a year. That's a lot of throughput. And if all of a sudden my speeds went from 10 to 15 just on the run rate, I mean, that's
massive,
life-changing,
massive,
life-changing. So we're very good. In our management meetings, we're always talking about CapEx. What's the next thing? We're installing something next month in February where instead of the boxes that come flying down, the gluers, when they put glue on them, it's going to be in this automatic hopper that puts them directly into the cardboard box, and it eliminates people there. And it's just so nice to have that. And then people are going to be redirected to other areas. But the speeds that we're now going to be able to get off the machine, humans cannot keep up. You can't just put another body on it, so to speak. Like you need to have this technology.
Dude, this is just such an important topic that I hope everybody listening is paying attention to. Got to be talking CapEx.
Always.
And we got to be thinking about what is the next thing. And we got to be thinking manufacturing technology. We got to be thinking IT. We got to be, right, like you talked about sales and marketing. Like we got to be thinking about how are we going to get our message out there?
Yep.
What are we doing? Where are we when it comes to engaging on, LinkedIn, Facebook? Where are we with SEO, SEM? Like we got to be, where the people are. And you and I touched on this briefly on the phone. But I think when we think about Connecticut and any really advanced kind of, economy over time, you have to keep moving up the value chain because you can't compete any other way. And I was saying to you, somehow we've been convinced to pay $1,200 for a cell phone by Apple and love it.
True.
Right. But the experience from the packaging to the phone, everything feels $1,200.
You're right. And we're in such a go world. Everyone wants it now or yesterday. That part of the new printing press and why we bought that, and again, a die cutter, is what would happen is we'd get really busy and maybe our lead times would balloon to, we try to keep it around 4, 5, maybe 6 weeks, but they balloon up to 8 weeks or more. And then you upset your customers and then you could lose customers. So we have to make sure that we are staying up with the technology. Because again, if we're not getting it, someone else is. Someone else is. And you always have to align yourself with
you're either the leader or the follower.
Exactly. Right? And you have to align yourself with the right bankers too. If you're privately held or however, private equity, whatever, is you have to have that strategic plan to go forward. And that's what we're doing right now. We're putting together a 2026 plan because we feel that we could really, with everything going on in our organization and really ramping up the sales and the volume side, just some of the new investments that we've been making have been paying for themselves even faster than we thought. And you can't be afraid to do it. I was afraid, when you sign a $6 million, your hand's a little shaky.
Yeah. I'm aware of that. So, and listen, I'm just going to throw a little plug at Connecticut here, which is, I think, Connecticut as a state's been really aggressive and helpful with the Manufacturing Innovation Fund and other programs. People work with, CCAT. I know you're former chairman. I don't have time to talk about this today, but you're former chairman of CBIA. So, you're kind of involved there. There's a lot of programs in Connecticut to help people with that funding and with that financing to move that thing forward.
That's right. And I will say this too, just to add on, like when we bought the printing press, there was a whole program that was happening here in the state of Connecticut, which we took advantage of, and it was awesome. We as a Manufacturers Assistance Act, and we presented and we said, here's what's going on. And we were very fortunate that we had some contribution by the state at a very low interest rate, because the reality is my phone is ringing off the hook from all these other states that want me to get down there. And the reality was we would even put some pen on paper and start looking at what some of those numbers might look like. Now, of course, it's easier said than done, but some of the numbers had a lot of zeros and were eye-opening. So it was nice that the state was really, kind of in tune with what we wanted to do. And if I can add one more thing, I know we're running low
you're good. You're
on
good.
time, but we did another incredible program in the state of Connecticut. As you mentioned, I'm very passionate about Connecticut and manufacturing. I was the chairman of the CBIA board, Connecticut Business Industry Association, very much a part of that and still engaged with them. I found out probably 5 or 6 years ago about a CPACE program. I forget the exact acronym, but basically it's looking at an organization and seeing how can they be more, energy efficient and what can they do for energy. And this could be all sorts of different programs, but we have one of the largest CPACE programs in Connecticut. And it was a project that was about $2.6 million. And again, it was funded by the Connecticut Green Bank. My out-of-pocket was next to zero. Now it gets paid off in about 10 years, but we were able to redo all of our lighting inside and out with energy efficient LEDs. This was the second time. This is like the next generation of LEDs. We were able to put a solar array on our roof that we now generate about 25% on site. We're able to put 25 or 30 giant HVAC compressors on our roof. We were able to move the natural gas line from Newtown High School to Curtis Packaging, which is about half a mile away, and finally get rid of our oil boiler. That used to scare me because it looked like a Ghostbusters tank in our basement. And now we're on natural gas. And we could not have done that project without the support of the state and CPACE. Awesome.
That's great. Listen, I appreciate you getting that out there.
Absolutely.
Last two questions before we go to rapid fire. We'll hopefully get through them.
Well, this hasn't been rapid fire.
Yeah. So we, you talked about sort of green, and one of the things I've really been asking a lot about lately has been the business leaders thinking on diversity and inclusion.
Right.
And just interested in your thoughts on, I don't know why I feel like those two things tie together. Maybe they don't.
Sure.
Maybe it's just because it's all part of that responsible triple bottom line business.
Sure.
How do you think about diversity and inclusion, and what does that look like at Curtis?
Yeah. I think for us, we're fortunate to be in an area where there's a lot of diversity. And we're pulling from all over. We're pulling from different cities. We're pulling from different suburbs. And we don't have a necessarily a mission, where we need to hire this many female, this many, and broken down. When you look at our organization, I don't have the statistics memorized, but we have a really nice combination of a management team that is 55% male, 45% female, and diversity, if across the board. So we are very blessed to be in an area that it's important to us, but we haven't had to work hard to get it. We've been very fortunate that our top management, it's really a melting pot of all sorts of nationalities, male, female, you name it. And again, very fortunate to have that. I know some companies are really putting a stake in the ground about it, and that's great. For us, we are always hiring the right person for the right job. And if it's male or female or wherever, doesn't matter. And again, that goes into our statistics when looking at a B corporation and even the Carbon Disclosure Project. And then there's different questions that are asked, and you will get negative points if you don't have nice, diverse staff. And we're fortunate that we do.
That's fantastic.
So,
Listen, I think diversity brings a lot of benefits. And last thing I wanted to ask you is what's something, when you think about the culture at Curtis Packaging, what do you love the most about it? What do you love? What do you think people would love the most about working there?
Yeah, it's an awesome question, because I think everyone loves the passion and the energy that we all have for the business. There's a sense of pride when you go into Sephora, or if you're going into a golf course and you see Titleist, and we make virtually 95% of the golf ball packaging for them globally. If you go into a Macy's and see the gift set that's there, or you're going into a liquor store and you just happen to glance up and be like, I did that Johnny Walker box. I mean, there's an incredible sense of pride in the craftsmanship, which has always been there, that classic like Yankee ingenuity from going back to the 1800s. And when times get tough, people get tougher, and we've always had that spirit. And and even people that have been with Curtis for 40 years said, yeah, there's something about, we get it done. Like we'll come together, we'll get it done. But I just think there's an incentive, this huge sense of pride on what we do, that, okay, we're not solving the problems of the world one box at a time, but we're certainly putting smiles on faces. We're making someone's day maybe a little bit brighter. And if we can do that with some luxury, fancy, nice looking packaging, we're going to do it.
Absolutely. Listen, I love that. And if you're giving people smiles and you're giving your employees 3-day weekends, nothing wrong with all that. All right, man, let's move it over to rapid fire. You ready?
Yes, sir. Ready.
All right, man. Red Sox or Yankees?
Red Sox.
There we go. I mean, the business is down in Fairfield, so I was wondering.
Although I will admit, sorry to interrupting the rapid fire. We did have for 5 years, we had seats at Yankee Stadium, and because a lot of our business is New York centric,
sure.
And as a Red Sox fan, so I would begrudgingly go
gotta go to game.
Gee, we hit a home run, give a nice polite, good job, buddy. Anyway,
Starbucks or Dunkin'?
Dunkin'.
Staycation or exotic destination?
Exotic destination.
There we go. iPhone or Android?
iPhone.
Sports car or SUV?
Sports car.
You have a favorite business book?
Oh, geez, that's a good question. I would probably say what got you here won't get you there.
That's a good one. If you could do anything in the world and had to do something other than being the president and CEO of Curtis Packaging, what would you do?
That's a great question. What would I do? I would probably plan other people's exotic vacations and adventures and go with them. And be a guide or be a host. I think years ago, my wife said, you should be one of those hosts in Las Vegas where you just go, because I'm a connector. I like to plan. I do all of our vacations and I love adventure. If it's sports, if it's something exotic. So that's what I'd probably do. I would plan fun for other people. I didn't realize that a lot of individuals don't have maybe that gene, or they don't have that drive to put like this wild package or vacation together. So if I could bring smiles to other people, but you got to invite me.
That's it. Dude, I might actually hire you for that. What's one thing that you learned early in your life, earlier in your career, Don, that you think helped propel you to all the success that you've had?
Yeah. I mean, I would say it's just being tenacious and not giving up. I mean, that is just huge. And that's from everything from sports and playing soccer all the way up until and Curtis. And when we were doing the green side of the business and greening the business, there's no roadmap. You just have to put your head down. You're going to make mistakes. You're going to say stupid things in front of people that maybe are scholars in the environmental side. And to me, it's just, you just have to keep going. And honestly, it's following your gut on it. It's following your gut. It's amazing how people just don't use common sense. It's amazing. I probably learned that way young, but it's even to this day, if you take that proverbial step back and analyze it, common sense is going to work probably 9 out of 10 times, if not 10 out of 10.
Yeah, and probably
it's scary.
Better and faster.
It's scary. Yeah.
What's one thing, Don, that you learned later in your career, later in your life, that you wish you could go back and tell young Don, and if he'd listen to you, it'd make a real positive impact on him?
I would probably say don't make decisions too quickly. I think in an organization of our size, there's times where maybe I should have, instead of just either making a decision and going for it, maybe like take the time, reset, sleep on it, and just maybe some of the outcomes would be a little bit different. It doesn't happen too often, but there's just times when you're going and you're hard charging, you're running around, you're doing this, and then you might take the step back and be like, was that the right thing to do? So I'm a little, now it's, I'll take that extra step or the extra pause, maybe breathe, maybe consult with someone if it's something that maybe, was a little sticky or my gut will tell me, as I say, follow my gut. But sometimes you do need to have the opinion of others, your management team, to say, all right, before we just go flying down one path, maybe we should talk.
Get some buy-in from
maybe
some
we
other
should
people.
talk about it first.
That's
so
awesome.
the old ready, shoot, aim.
Yeah, exactly.
Happens
Don,
sometimes.
It's been awesome.
All right, right on. Thank you.
Thank you so much for.
No, you're
for
my
sharing.
pleasure. It's been a ton of fun.
Awesome.
I've loved it.
Made in America with Ari Santiago is brought to you by IT Direct.
As always, thank you so much for tuning in and spending some time with me today. My goal is to help build a community where we can learn and grow together. Your input, feedback, and engagement is critical to making that happen. Please do comment, like, and subscribe so more and more people can hear what we're doing and join our community of growth and success. Thanks so much for tuning in. Talk to you again soon.